I was thinking about doing an intro for this video, but you've already read the title, so... Silent Hill 2, or... is a 2024 remake of the original Silent Hill 2, which came out in 2001. And when talking about games that are remakes, people have a tendency to draw comparisons to the progenitor, which sort of feels like the wrong way to go about it. See, I think a real principled individual, a paragon of virtue, would critique a game as its own individual experience and wouldn't fall into these trappings of the commonplace critique, commentator, or connoisseur. In Silent Hill 2, you play as James Sunderland, you play as James Sunderland, the most depressed man in the world, arriving to a town called Silent Hill, which is, by the way, probably one of the worst names you could pick for a town that you don't want spooky shit to happen in. Probably could have workshopped this one a bit. Anyways, the reason James is here is because he got a letter from his wife that says that she is waiting for him in Silent Hill. And even if you haven't played this game, you probably already know the letter, in my restless dreams.
I see that town, Silent Hill.
Waiting for you.
Anyways, the kicker is James says his wife has been dead for 3 years already. How did he get this letter? Is his wife really still alive? There's this. And if you don't know, as it's not really explored or explained much at all in the second game, there's a cult called the Order, and in the cult, there is a woman named Dahlia Gillespie,
who lived in Silent Hill with her daughter Alessa, who has drawn supernatural powers to her since she was a child. Now these disturbances, along with Alessa's lighting telekinetic abilities, render her as a witch.
Basically, because of the Native Americans, Civil War POWs, and the crazy white woman, Silent Hill was split into 3 different parts. The happy normal world, the spooky fog world, and dear fucking god, everything is rusted metal. Why is there so much chain link fencing here, man? Is that an unflushed toilet full of shit? Oh, dude, come on, man. Don't do that. All of this game takes place in these 2 parts, but before we talk about this game, I'm a lazy writer, alright? If I were to call the original Silent Hill 2 a very scary game, I would be lying. At least when it comes to the gameplay, I would say what gives credence to its incredible popularity in the horror genre rests in the story, which I will touch on later. Now, what the game itself does really well is the atmosphere and sound design. See, these enemies make these hideous shrieks, clicks and clacks, their footsteps reverberate through your headphones, or, well, your CRT TV. The areas are dreary, long, dark, tattered hallways, an uncanny feel and a heavy fog covering everything outside. The music, oppressive, almost suffocating, like being sandwiched between an iron blanket and a bed of nails. But despite all of this, while playing, I don't think I ever really found myself scared, at least not in the traditional sense of the word. I never felt like I needed to compose myself while playing this game. Cause sure, there are moments when playing that got me going a little bit, like for example when I open the door, hear an enemy in the room I'm in, but the camera is pointing at jack shit, so I have to frantically look around hoping they aren't right next to me. Even then, most of the enemies get absolutely ass blasted by the stick, and that's assuming they aren't one of the enemies that you could just run past. And you can even deduct some more points when you see how much gravitas the encounters lose when you turn off the radio that warns you when enemies are nearby. Are you scared yet? Is your heart beating out of your chest? Are your nuts quivering yet? Are you on top of that, even the boss fights felt a bit underwhelming. Like for example, take the first boss fight with Pyramid Head, the most menacing enemy in the game, so iconic that he sits in horror game history right next to Nemesis and Freddy Fazbear. Oh, that was close. Riveting. And now take that same fight in the remake. That's right. And don't come back. They have completely reworked the combat system. You have this little dodge mechanic now, and you need it, because enemies are actually dangerous. I don't want to fight these guys, but I have to fight these guys, or I will be dead. but you are slamming them now. This shit is visceral. And when James kicks an enemy on the ground, you don't get this little wimpy kick. Get this shit out of my face. No, you are stomping on them. These aren't the grunts of a man who is filled with rage. No, these are the grunts of a man that is like, holy shit, I just killed that thing. I'm fighting for my fucking life over here. And yeah, I know 3 hits on the ground will kill all enemies. I don't care. I'm going for 5 every time. Oh, you've been lying on the ground for the past hour? Eat shit. And it's a good thing they did rework the combat system, because this is a goddamn action horror game now, alright? You had a part in this. There are 5 areas in Silent Hill 2, which is true for both games. First the apartment, then the hospital, next the prison, the labyrinth, and finally the hotel, all connected through a semi-open world. I killed more enemies in the hospital section of the remake alone than I did in the entire original Silent Hill 2. It almost feels bloated with enemy encounters. Repetition can be the killer of horror. It is hard to be scary a second time, let alone the 22nd time. And don't get me started on these stupid fucks, these 2 pairs of legs looking like a reversed handicapped mermaid that hides in every crevice of the game, who at first, I'll admit, were a little scary. Oh, you know, they could be hiding anywhere. But then after the 4th, the 5th, the 500th time, my reaction turned from, oh god, to, oh my god, not again. It became tedious. And they aren't even slick either. I mean, look at this. Look at him. I could see you right there. Who are you trying to fool? And then, when you get to the prison, they take these enemies who by, at this point, have become a nuisance at best, my personal Silent Hill at worst, and they say, hey, what if they could climb up walls? Is this your idea of comedy? But there is a silver lining, because at first I was very critical of this and of the remake in general. You know, I was one of those, well, this didn't happen in the original. These guys are obviously making a mockery of the game and of us devoted fans. Are you calling me fat, Bloober Team? Are you saying I'm fat and worthless and I'm a loser and I'd be better off dead? And to be fair to past me, a lot has changed here. Most areas are very different. There are completely new areas that weren't even in the original game, and most of the boss fights have been completely reworked. It is hard to call this just a remake. This is more of a remix, but as I kept playing and the more I considered the themes and the story of the game, I started to come around to the point where I felt like I almost gaslighted myself into thinking what originally was a critique in the too much fighting was actually a good thing. Repetition can be a killer of horror, but then again, terror is not the end-all be-all of horror. Because what this game is really lauded on is the story of James, a deeply troubled man who the town of Silent Hill has called. Because that is what Silent Hill does. See, it is a reflection of your consciousness. The thoughts that trouble you shape the town you see. All of these enemies, they aren't real. They're just manifestations of James' mind. The walking body bag, the Funko Pop nurse's wood fun fact, the guys with the dual fleshlight attachments on each arm, even Pyramid Head the Tweaker himself. See, this town is only as dangerous as you are fucked up. Which, wouldn't really work for me. Because you know what is the Instagram Reels ghost and the gambling ghoul gonna do to me, you know? Make me waste even more years of the prime of my life doing shit I'll deeply regret when I'm 60. But it worked for James and the other 2 people we end up meeting in this town, because, oh boy, they are not alright. And you can feel that in the town. The Silent Hill 2 remake has improved, in my opinion, what was already one of the greatest parts of the original. The ambiance. In an effort to not mince words here, I will say, this game is downright beautiful. The fog listlessly loiters in every corner of this town, the darkness enveloping everything that your flashlight isn't pointed at, the heavy rain that got me moving like Neo in that one scene, the sounds, breathing, moving, stuff you can't see but you can almost feel trying to grab out to you. All the while, the soundtrack, fire by the way, making sure you never feel at ease. There was a moment when the atmosphere alone actually sent a chill through my body. You know, maybe this is me getting a little soft as I get older, but I cannot recount a single time another piece of media has actually had that effect on me. Usually, games have moments of respite to ease the tension before you are plunged back into the darkness, and this game is no exception, but the deeper you go, the closer you get to the truth of James' situation, the less breaks there are. You are fighting, pushing on, deeper and deeper into this nightmare of James' consciousness. Hospital, prison, labyrinth, going as far as you can, and then you finally leave the labyrinth, reach the hotel, finally, a single moment of peace. And by the time I was out, through all the fighting, running, and crying, I was genuinely mentally fatigued. Just like James. Was this intentional? Or in the process of making this game a more marketable product, did Bloober Team stumble upon some insane ludonarrative harmony? It's the third option. I am mentally unwell. There are things the original does better, like the camera work for one, and if you're the type of guy that loves to use the term Lynchian, I'm sure you shake with rage at the thought of this demake. And to be frank, this game is not a replacement for the original. It is a new way to play Silent Hill 2. It is a companion piece, if you would. You can and should play both. That being said, if this game wasn't running on Booty Engine 5 optimized by drunk chimpanzees, I would honestly have to say it's all I'm looking for in a remake. Recency bias? Maybe, but this might be one of my favorite horror games ever. And potentially unpopular opinion here, I think it's scarier in almost every way than the original. I don't even think it compromised too much to get here. You know, with remakes in general, my biggest fear is always that the story will be impacted in some negative way. However, if anything, it feels like, especially with these new voice actors, and actually, hold on, these motherfuckers were acting their ass off, bro. Come on, this man is sad. He is pathetic. He's pathetic. It just adds so much more weight to these characters. They feel so real, which, in my opinion, is probably the best part of the story. It feels real. This is actually me on a Tuesday night. I'm kidding. But both in the original and in this one, looking past the overt, this town is a reflection of your mind shtick, it feels believable. These sad, horrific situations the characters have found themselves in outside of the horror of Silent Hill is the highlight here. The portrayal of their pain feels real, and these feelings transcend beyond characters in a game. I would even bet some of you who have played this game have been in these same situations. Hopefully not like a one-to-one recreation, but the stories are material. If you have seen the older horror game videos I've done, you would know that I used a 1 to 10 rating system to represent the scare factor of these games. But I am older now. I'm mature. I pay taxes. I've played Grand Theft Auto. I've seen a boobie. Maybe even 2. And 1 to 10 rating systems are so juvenile. Positively asinine, I dare say. Be gone from my presence, you vexatious wench. So yeah, we're doing tier list now. Mouthwashing, or Still a Better Delivery Service Than FedEx, is a title that has been picking up a bit of steam on Steam as of late. The first paid game rather, from indie studio Wrong Organ, an avant-garde thriller. Another indie horror utilizing the tried and true PSX low poly graphical art style, which... how original! But I will say this, Mouthwashing is the most aesthetically pleasing one of these I have seen, and to be honest, I never get bored of it, alright? I'm a sucker for it. Something about this style just touches my brain in the right way. This game is about 2 hours long, 3 if you're slow, and I would recommend playing it, preferably without knowing anything about it. And I mean anything, so this is your chance to touch that little thing of mine down there. You know, where is it now, huh? I wonder where future me put this part of the... is it here? How about here? Okay, that's about enough time. This game centers around 5 characters that we will come to form great attachments to. See, there's Jimmy, or Jimbo. He's a wacky guy, all right. Anya, the nurse of the ship, a bit faint of heart. Swansea, the group hard ass. He's built like a pregnant seahorse. And Daisuke. Stupid, silly Daisuke. Daisuke. You know what I'm talking about? I like that guy. He's a cool guy. And also there's Curly. He's the captain of the ship you're on, the Tulpar, a space freighter commissioned by the Pony Express on a 382-day shipment across the great unknown. You start the game in the cockpit, and there's an asteroid close to your ship. What are you gonna do? That's probably not what you should do. This game is actually somewhat of a mystery game in which you solve the mystery of why the hell he crashed us into an asteroid, which is told in a pretty interesting... This game likes to do that a lot. And you'd be hard-pressed to find a more jarring transition than making you think your computer's just randomly crashed. However, what we are dealing with here isn't faulty RAM, but rather a non-linear narrative. Jumping between before the crash and after the crash, in the before sections, you play as the captain, and after the crash, he seems a little preoccupied. So you play as Jimbo instead. And coming off the first little section of the game, you might think it to be a bit of a mascot horror. Thank God it isn't, but you would really think so because of my good friend Polly over here. See, Polly is the mascot of the Pony Express, just a cute little horse, really, nothing scary about him unless you have a problem with unethical business practices. Ooh, capitalism. But really, this game is a psychological horror. The real cute little horse is in the mind. Days stranded in space, stuck on a ship, days turn to weeks, and weeks turn to months. We are trapped together, and sure, tensions are high, but let's not get short of dismissive, lest we start getting angry at each other. If we want to make it out of this, we're gonna have to work together.
Polly says...
Yeah, maybe don't fucking kill your coworkers, I don't know. Don't you just love watching people progressively go more and more insane? It's one of my favorite tropes, I never get sick of it. And that's what you're doing here, really. The gameplay is minimal, most of it is you just walking around, talking, and soaking up this beautiful disaster that you're a part of, slowly learning about what has been transpiring on the ship in the past 147-ish days. Which lands us at the penultimate segment of this segment, so if you haven't played this game and now suddenly care, skip to the next section because I'm spoiling most of the whole thing here. There are only 3 actual active gameplay sections here, which are more sort of traditional horror game-esque, i.e. thing trying to kill you tries to kill you. 2 of them where an eldritch fetus horse tries to get at you. This comes in 2 flavors, schizo snake and crazy centipede. And 1 where you 1v1 Swansea, who has decided that now is as good a time as any to get into character for his upcoming Jack Torrance cosplay. Short-lived thrills that last a total of about 15 minutes of actual gameplay and pose no real danger because you can't actually lose here. Apart from that, let's get the old jump scare counter on the board here, and 2 actual jump scares, and they are stupid. I almost feel embarrassed to say that these kind of got me. See, the first one is from Polly, and no, not the eldritch fetus horse Polly, but this one, which only goes to show how stupid the second one was. Holy fuck, what the fucking goddamn. A normal woman. A normal woman scared me, all right? Go on, make your jokes, laugh it up. But let's go back a little bit. How did we get here? Mouthwash. So the cargo they've been transporting is actually like 1 billion fucking boxes of mouthwash, which seems like a cruel joke. Now, mouthwash, if you don't know, is about 25% alcohol on average. So say you crash your ship, think you're gonna die, and have a damn near lifetime supply of alcoholic beverage in your cargo hold. I'm not saying you should drink mouthwash. I'm just saying, you know, I might drink a little bit of mouthwash. I might do it. And not only is the mouthwash a kick in the dick to the characters, finding themselves all damned for the sake of something essentially useless. Ooh, capitalism! But it also serves to drive these characters to further embody the worst versions of themselves. At least most of them. Which brings us to the hard part. What is the best way to say this without getting assassinated by YouTube's auto-demonetization? So Jimbo did a bit of an to Anya, which led her to being and after he got he decided to himself and everybody on the ship. If that makes you feel a little bit icky, good. Because I think that feeling is what this game does best. Now, of course, there is the body horror pertaining to the captain. I'm not a squeamish man by any means, but I was still gasping like a Puritan seeing the devious things wrong Organ decided to do to this man. But the actual scariest part of this game is not the torture, or the horse, or Jack Torrance, or women. It is the character you are playing as, Jimbo. Thinks he is doing what is best. The prevailing theme of this game is taking responsibility. Jimmy has deluded himself into thinking his actions are righteous, that he can fix the mistakes he has made in the past. Little does he realize that he has already dug himself too deep, and every decision he makes just brings him a bit further down. Mouthwashing reads like a cautionary tale. This game gets you to believe that Jimmy is the voice of reason in the beginning, just to slowly show you not only how disturbed he is, but how wrong everything you are doing actually is. It depicts a man who is essentially living the worst case scenario and says, this is you now. have fun. Is the game really scary? No, I don't think so. But it was gross and disturbing, and I felt like I needed a shower after playing this game. You know, you put me through this aesthetic masterclass and hit me with a story that is, in summation, everybody suffers and then you die. Siren, or Forbidden Siren, or the second worst case of food poisoning ever, is a 2003 PS2 game made by a lot of the same guys who made the first Silent Hill. A game notorious for its difficulty, with some lauding it as the hardest horror game ever, accusations of which will be addressed in a second. First, let's give a quick rundown of where we are. The country is Japan. The town is Hanuda. The enemies, Shibito. Kind of like zombies, not really, unkillable. They can use guns and shit. The English dub voice actors, British. The name of the character you play as? Yes. Alright, let's get to the accusations. There is so much cryptic bullshit in this game, it is insane. As soon as I saw in the very first 5 minutes of gameplay, you had to individually, and I'm talking about there was a separate menu for each of these actions. Unlock the door, open the door, put the key in the ignition, turn the key to the ignition. I knew this game was about to be on some bullshit. The story of this game is told in a very non-linear fashion. When you finish the first mission, you are greeted with this. The second hint that this game is about to be on some bullshit. As I alluded to earlier, in Siren you play as multiple characters, each with their own storylines that are somewhat interconnected. The levels are events on this timeline called the Link Navigator, and each event is attributed to a different time, which at first didn't really make following the story any easier. You know, when you introduce like 10 characters at once, names stop matching to faces. I don't know who Tomoko is, I only know this. Beating a level will unlock a different level at a different time for a different character. Hard to follow, but easy enough concept to understand, right? But no, because almost every level also has a second variant on some separate timeline bullshit with a slightly remixed level and objective that you need to do in order to progress the story. But here's the real kicker, alright, is that to actually unlock the second level needed to progress, you need to do an objective on a different level, an objective that is damn near entirely hidden. Like for example, in one of the missions, you play as this guy. The mission objective is to get to the end of the level. Easy enough, right? But no. There is a secret mission you need to do which requires you to see this code on the wall. You'll think it's with a combo lock right next to it, realize it isn't, so you go into the barbershop and figure out the code is actually a radio frequency. Turn on the radio, tune it to that specific frequency, and listen to the actual code. Input that into the combo lock, go into the shed and pick up a towel. Now you go across the street to a completely different building, go into the kitchen, wet the towel, plug in the freezer, turn on the freezer, put the towel in the freezer. Wonderful! Now you have unlocked the second part of a completely different level for this guy. Now, there is a piggy bank in the kitchen. You take the frozen towel out of the freezer and place it in between two countertops. Put the piggy bank on top of the towel. This allows you to get to a safe distance before the towel unfreezes. Dropping the piggy bank, making the enemy in the other room come investigate the piggy bank, allowing us to safely pick up the notebook he was guarding, finishing the mission. And that was one of the ones I didn't have to look up. Because there is some bullshit in this game. Like for this one, first you need to tell this girl to hide in this cabinet. This will make her give you candles at the end of the level. Then you have to be sure you pushed over 4 hidden pillars on 4 different levels with 4 different characters, which will allow you to light up these stone statues. But there is an order to lighting them, which the game does not even make clear, and I still don't know the correct way to determine the order. I just looked it up after a certain point, and even after looking it up, I still couldn't find the reason. I couldn't find it online. I couldn't find the reason online. I think it has to do with these symbols, but I don't even really know. I'm just spitballing here. And you know, hidden missions are one thing, but some of the normal missions are dumb too. Like this one tells me I have to find the shoe of a nurse. Do you see it here? Are you seeing it? Well, maybe it's here. Do you see it here? Or how about here? Are you looking hard enough? Well, if we zoom in a little bit, just a little bit more, well, just a tad. Ah, there it is. Right, it's right there. You see that? How did you miss that? This is randomized, by the way. There are 2 other bushes this can be hiding in. But those are just the puzzles, right? Those are just the puzzles. The normal gameplay can't also be that hard, right? Besides the normal shooting, hitting, and hiding that you find in almost every game ever, this game has a special mechanic called sight jacking, which I know how it sounds. I'm sure a lot of you probably sight jack every day, huh? Maybe some of you are sight jacking right now. But I'm not talking about cranking your meat. I'm talking about the ability to look through the eyes of other beings. Here is what your character looks like normally, And here's what they look like when they're sight-jacking it. Eerily similar. But sight-jacking is not just limited to humans. Yes, you can sight-jack the enemy. Everything they see, everything they hear, beamed directly into your mind in a crisp, clear 480p. This allows you to plan out your routes through the levels, solve puzzles, and get a glimpse into the life of a mindless undead drone. Now, not only is the story of this game told in a non-linear manner, but surprise, surprise, a lot of crucial information is tucked away in lore drops from items you just gotta hope you find. But what about ease of accessibility? I say with a posed look. This is an early 2000s Japanese horror game. I hate it here. In this bitch, you better take your sensitive ass back to... I think there is a fine line between frustration and fear. You don't want your game to be too easy because then there is nothing to be scared of, but you don't want your game to be too hard because then there will come a point that the frustration will override most of the fear. In this game, it was probably around this mission. Why is every single guy in this game Agent 47? They don't miss. They haven't missed once. And I'm well aware that this section so far has been mostly complaining. You'd probably assume that I'm not a fan. I think this game has given me Stockholm Syndrome, because if you can actually get over the initial hump of understanding how this game wants you to play it, there is still so much more pain to be had here. But by that point, the game had already made me a masochist, so I enjoy getting quick-scoped across the map by enemies out of my render distance. This is part of the charm, and there is a lot of charm in this game. A lot here is actually really goddamn cool. Let's first address the elephant in the room. What the hell is wrong with your face? So instead of using the same old boring 3D modeled faces, here they used makeup and recorded the actors, then overlaid their actual faces onto the models, which gives this super creepy, almost uncanny valley look to all the characters. The atmosphere of this game is great. The town is this depressing village that is merged with the underworld, always raining blood, rivers of blood, blood soup, tears of blood. The cutscenes have this old film aesthetic, which really does something for me. Toilet blood, puddles of blood, blood. The soundtrack is this weird mix of classic Japanese horror and sci-fi alien beeps and boops. In the background, there is always this persistent, faint siren. Huh? Yeah, the story is actually really cool, and despite it being strung together in a seemingly incoherent way, by the end, it's actually pretty easy to piece together what is happening, sans a Vadi Vidya level lore deep dive. And the cool thing about having multiple characters is that not all characters are built equally. Some can stand their ground and fight, and some are small and defenseless but able to get into places others can't. Sometimes the game will be Call of Duty, sometimes the game will be the worst escort mission you can think of, and sometimes the game will be sit in a closet for 10 minutes waiting for the enemies to get into the right place so I can continue the level. Another advantage with having multiple characters is that if you don't like one, you might like the next one. You know, I'll say I was picking favorites. You know, goddamn doctor, who gives a shit? He's a pussy. This chick, unemployed, get a job, you bum. This guy is not even 18. Grow up. But then, there are my two guys. Akira, the Beast, Shimura, and Tamon, walk 'em down Takeuchi. 70-year-old Gillian the Mist, my man, got the big iron on his hip. He speaks in euphemisms, collectively blows the fuck out of like 100 of these guys. This man saves a girl and says, nah, this shit is stupid. I'm not dealing with any of this. And he blasts himself. My hero. Which I think is the actual best part of playing multiple characters. Not everybody you play will make it to the end. Some of the characters you have guided through these levels will end up as these abhorrences. You will be fighting them, and with the ability to sidetrack, not only will you be able to see them in this decrepit state, you'll be able to get a first-hand account of how enfeebled they actually are, contributing to this feeling of dread the game has been building on. If a town like Silent Hill makes you feel helpless, then this place makes you feel hopeless. There is no salvation to be had here. The situation is downright dismal. And I suppose the difficulty of the game did have a helping hand in that regard. But it is a creeping feeling that this game professes. It is one of the longer horror games I have played, and it never used cheap tricks to try and elicit a scare from me. No jump scares, nothing really startling. It feels to me a lot of horror games play their hand way too early. Siren has mastered the art of the gradual ramp up, of incremental escalation. Sitting at around 20 hours minimum for a complete playthrough, this really is a slow burn horror based on pure mood and circumstance. It's just a shame that this is the Dark Souls of horror games. We got him, boys. We got him, boys. Let's wrap it up. All right, let's get out of here. Whew. I'm feeling like a game critic now. If you hate yourself, this is a great game to play. Otherwise, like maybe watch a Let's Play or something. Who's Lila, or the Try to Pick Up on Social Cues challenge, is a 2022 indie horror game with a very unique art style and a very unique premise, and is a game that can commonly be referred to as pretentious YouTuber bait. Small, underrated indie game with a weird concept? Story that is told in an unconventional and somewhat obscure manner? Yup. Philosophical themes underlying the entire experience? Oh, hell yeah, baby. It's 4-hour poorly paced video essay time. This is a point-and-click game on the left side of your monitor, because if you direct your attention to the right side, you will see this, which is you, William Clark. And it's also the main mechanic of the game, making faces. Because William ain't neurotypical, my boy got autism. At least that's what it seems like, because he has trouble making the correct face at the correct time, so you gotta help him out, twist and contort his face to fit the situation. How would you react if you saw a dead dog? How would you react if you got an unexpected phone call? How would you react if Nintendo started porting their games to Steam? I don't want to buy this shitty system anymore, man. I can't do it anymore, man. You begin the game with not a trace of what is happening, left with only a vague sense that something is wrong, a feeling that is mostly conveyed through this cold aesthetic and eerie ambient track. And in my first 10 minutes of gameplay, I made some faces in a mirror, took a phone call, threw out the trash, met some random Slavic guy, he killed me more times than I would like to admit, saw this shit, and then somehow beat the game. Or well, got one of the endings of the game. Unlike a game where you work towards an ending, this game's story is told in endings. 16. There are 16 different endings, each canon in its own right, and where one ends, one begins, and where you end, everything else begins. Filling in the little pieces of a mystery bit by bit, Tanya Kennedy, a girl that goes to Williams High School, is missing. But you are not a detective, no. You are a goddamn loser. And it becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly that you are also probably not a very good person. And playing this game made me realize that I might not be a good person either, because it took all of my willpower to not just flash the biggest shit-eating grin every time the game let me choose an expression, like I was some giddy schoolboy trying not to laugh at a joke in class. The joke being kidnapping and potentially murder. Most of the game is puzzle solving and a more trial and error aspect of the word than actual logical reasoning. What would happen if I responded to this guy with a neutral face? Okay, now, what would happen if I responded to the same thing with a frowny face? There were also some small first-person sections in the occasional point-and-click chase scene, which, by the way, has no right to be as tense as it was. But that really is what most of this reverse detective mystery has to offer mechanically. Now, what is really creepy about this game is not the mystery, though. No, the mystery itself is pretty cut and dry. You can just about assume what had happened pretty quickly. This girl is missing, and you obviously have something to do with it. What is actually creepy is the underpinning of this mystery, all revolving around your character William and another character you keep hearing the name of, Lila. Who's Lila? Come on, two times? 2 times in the same video? You can't script this shit, man. There are 2 aspects to the horror in this game, and I wouldn't really think of it as scary in terms of putting me on the back foot and forcing me into horrific situations, although there were a few moments that had me going for a second, but it is more like if you saw a robot wearing a skin suit trying its hardest to be human. It triggers a fight or flight response in you, and boy oh boy do I really wish there was a word or phrase to describe this feeling. At the beginning, your character says that he can't make expressions, he has to will them. But it doesn't really feel that way because, sure, sometimes you'll have to respond to something and his face will be stone cold, allowing you to make whatever expression you want. But sometimes he will hear something and his face will start to contort into an expression you don't want to make. So you'll have to fight it, producing some even more twisted amalgamation of something that should be human. Couple that with the dissonant, ear-piercing sound effects and music that sometimes plays, and In fact, there is one specific scene that, while looking like this, might be one of the most visceral I have ever experienced in a game thanks to the sound design. The second part of the horror is more existential and meta. And for one, to say that this game is meta is downplaying, to be honest. There is literally a character called Detective U who is supposed to be figuring out the mystery of this game. There's even a line of the characters talking to each other stating that they wouldn't be here if he wasn't trying to figure everything out. Detective U? Come on now. On top of that, there is this DLC for the game called The Daemon that puts this shortcut on your home screen that opens a separate program which is just this. Now you keep this application open, and when you go into specific parts of the game, it will give you information to help solve the puzzles. So I was just playing this entire game with this creepy statue staring at me on my second monitor, judging me, his gaze piercing through my very being, looking into my soul. Have you ever yearned? And just for an example of how this daemon is used, in one part he will tell you a phone number. You will then call that number, which will give you the password for a computer that you'll have to open a file on, which will give you the link to some web page with a "web design is my passion" looking manifesto. This will send you to multiple Wikipedia articles and tell you to find the password to another website in the files of the separate daemon application you downloaded, which will let you download a PDF that contains information about weaponized memes made with the intent to control society that you will have to read to get the password to another file in the game, allowing you to unlock one of the endings. None of that was a joke. But the meta nature of this game is really only there to further drive home this existential question that is posed. Now, it throws terms like qualia and tulpa at you, which are terms that you could look up yourself if you want. The rabbit hole goes deep. But in essence, the question is, how much of you is really you? How fragile are the memories and the expectations of yourself and others? What is the human experience, and when the imaginary perception you have of yourself is broken, who or what becomes the perceiver? How tangible is your concept of self, and where does you begin and end? But that is smart people stuff. And I am stupid. Plus, you can make a whole 4-hour poorly paced video essay about this shit. If you really care to learn more, go read some Young or just watch a TikTok about it. No one can really tell the difference. Really though, this stuff is only as depressing or scary as the amount you ponder it, and I feel like the human brain does everything in its power to try and not comprehend itself. So maybe this game will leave a little rope that these thoughts can slowly climb to the surface with and haunt you at 3 a.m. before sleep inevitably wraps you in her comforting embrace, shoving those thoughts back where they belong. Or maybe your brain will bury all memories of it in its deepest recesses, never to be seen again. Either way, I think it's nice to occasionally have a little reminder of how frail every part of our being is. Overall though, if anything I had said here has piqued your interest, I would strongly recommend playing this game. It is definitely worth your time, the $12 it costs, and the potential shattering of your ego. MiSide, or actually if I gotta be real with you, this isn't really that bad to be honest, I kinda like it here, is a game that came out in the last month of last year and blew up. Holy shit. An indie game made by 2 Russian fellows, with the premise being that you're a guy, this guy, and you download a sort of Tamagotchi meets Bishoujo type game on your phone where you spend time with this girl, Mida. Now your character, like many other men who get 0 play, is immediately sucked into the game. And one day while playing it, he gets sucked into the game. A guy like me would be trying to get sucked in the game. That's a joke. But you can probably already see where this is going. And on the surface, this game is quite similar to another game you might have heard of called Doki Doki Literature Club. A cute anime girl video game turns into a fourth wall breaking horror experience, but the experiences in nature are actually quite different because, for one, the sort of fourth wall breaking mind bending nature in DDLC doesn't exist here in the same capacity. You are this character, and everything that breaks the fourth wall happens to him within the confines of the fourth wall to us, the real player. And I think you can also see another one of the main differences in the very beginning of the game, because there really is no point in this game where it tried hiding behind a veil of normalcy. In DDLC, it feels like half of the game is spent in normal visual novel territory, only being drip-fed the signs of an underlying current that you have already unknowingly been swept up in. In this game, within the first 10 minutes, you are helping her find her hairbrush. She tells you, whatever you do, don't look in the oven. It's a chainsaw. Not 5 minutes later, you are in the game, and not 5 minutes after that, shit is looking like this. Though you could probably already realize what is coming within a minute, because I don't know how many Bishoujo games have a censor gore option in the main menu. I also don't know how many Bishoujo games have such a cute main menu. I mean, look at her. She bobs her head to the music. She follows your mouse pointer around. She's all right, wait, hold on. Don't look at me like that. So this is unapologetically a horror game where you, the player, are being pursued by Mita because you metaphorically flew too close to the sun. And when I say metaphorically flew too close to the sun, I mean you found the woman locked in her basement, who is also Mita. If it isn't already glaringly obvious, this game is somewhat of a satire, and it really reaches across the whole board of the genre, so of course, we need as many gal game character tropes that you can find. How are we gonna do that? Well, the whole narrative here is that there are multiple Mitas, which represent the different versions of the game, and each version has a different personality. Kind Mita, Chibi Mita, Sleepy Mita, Tootie Mita, Mila. She was my favorite. She's kind of like a nerdy Mita. I really liked her. She's fun to talk to, and she's kind of funny, and I kind of, like, you know, if I'm going, dear fucking god, she's fucking dead. That is Crazy Mita, the one that brought you into the game and the one that is after you, and the same one who is after all the other players too. Because not just one player owns this game, so just like there are many Mitas, there are many players. Players who have seen what lies below the idyllic surface of this virtual world. But I mean, all you really had to do was turn a blind eye. Sure, she's a little crazy, but you could fix that, right? Being a gal game-based horror game, they have actually intertwined the two. 45% of the game is spending some time with these girls, playing games, dressing them up, falling into the most overused cliches in anime. Another 45% is spent running away from Crazy Mita, venturing into the nethermost stratum of this game inside a game, haunted by glitches and undesirables, looking for a way out. An additional 9.9% is actually just a meta-commentary about hikikomori lifestyle on some "you are both the prisoner and the warden of your own jail" type shit. Which could land for you. I mean, that is a large chunk of the target audience of this genre. And what is the remaining 0.1%, you ask? Doom. For some reason. So if I'm gonna be honest, the story isn't really a modern Don Quixote, but I will say that there was a surprising amount of depth to the whole critique of both gaming culture as a whole and social isolation in the digital age. Two themes that essentially make up the groundwork for this game, and even beyond any of those, just taking the story at face value, it was a roller coaster full of twists and turns, enough to keep me engaged till the end. But was it enough to keep me scared to the end? Well, you know, you would think it would be hard to make a cute anime girl an actual menacing threat, you know, something that actually strikes fear in you when you see it. And you would be right. Like, oh no, don't catch me. Oh, please don't catch me and tie me up and tickle my feet. But they actually come pretty close. I was honestly genuinely surprised. I think this wide-eyed expression and smile were just enough to dissuade me from running towards her every time that I saw her. Plus, she wasn't the only thing trying to kill you. There was the baby spider head, the crash test dummies, the demons again. Why the fuck are you guys here? What is going on? The environments for most of the horror sections are pretty similar to the environments for the normal sections. However, they are littered with unfinished assets and give off a more liminal feel to them, almost like an empty source map. And maybe this stuff works for you, but I find it more calming than scary, to be honest. The actual horror sections are really nothing to write home about either, you know. Weeping angels, been there, done that. Repeating hallway that changes every time you go through it, seen it before. And I mean, really, all in all, this game was more startling than it was scary. I can almost liken the horror to an old cheesy slasher film, jump scares and all. Holy fucking shit, god mother. Though that could be a bit reductive to say, because there is some psychological horror tomfoolery going on here, especially if you really pay attention. However, it was not enough to make me feel. It was cool though, but MiSide, really, is as much of a cute slice of life anime as it is a horror. It is as innovative as it is derivative, as tends to be the case with satire. Because really it feels like these guys knew the target audience of their game, thought of every trope they can think of, took every homage they can feasibly do, threw it all into one game, subverted some of it, and most importantly, just had some fun with it. It isn't the scariest game, and I don't really think that's what it was trying to be. So, I guess if we want the real horror, we're just gonna have to wait for the dating simulator version of this game, coming out in 2026. Ooh, talking to women. Alright, so this is the final list, and you know what? Also go ahead and rank these games in order of just how good of a game I think they are, regardless of how scary they were. So here's that. If you somehow made it to the end of this egregiously long video and don't feel worse off for it, maybe subscribe. Or don't. Actually, it's your life. Also, if you haven't seen the previous 2 episodes of this little horror series, at the end of each video, it seems that Past Me had the bright idea of including a random tier list that has nothing to really do with the actual video, so here you go. A tier list of the greatest rock bands of all time, in my opinion. It took me like 3 hours to make this list, by the way. There are too many bands on this tier list. This is the end of the video, by the way. What are you guys still doing here? Go away.
Rien